So today's topic is schizophrenia a price we pay for human evolution? So even though this question is there from almost 2 decades, since from uh, Crow's article on the same topic, is schizophrenia a price we pay for human language? Okay, there is not much advances or change in this particular framework, though there are recent studies. So we will go through quickly how we will try to evaluate this concept. Okay. So the aim of my presentation is seeing through the topic through the lens of evolution, or seeing through the lens of evolution the construct of schizophrenia. So we will try to break the question which was posed to us. We will try to understand what is the aspects of evolution and state central paradox of schizophrenia, and think about balanced selection. If you see any paper on evolutionary genetics, this whole part which I presented until now will be written in the first one paragraph itself. We will also try to see some selected validating studies for this construct. We'll also consider some limitations or bias, and some recent studies where they have used certain, where they have found uh, evidences to the contrary, and then we will make small conclusion about the topic. So first one, is schizophrenia a price we pay for human evolution? So I have marked the question in colors so that we will find the similar statements below. So the question can be broken into at least 3 sub questions, and we have to try to answer each of them. The first one is it a human disorder? The second one, though it has been rephrased by me because I know the definition of evolution. So is it a heritable trait? The third and the important paraphrasing of the question itself is a consequence of fundamental aspect of humans. It's a paraphrasing of the question itself. Coming to the first question, okay, is it a human disorder? I think I assume that we don't doubt that schizophrenia is a human disorder. The one reason is it's very hard to provide an evidence to the contrary. Though we cannot prove it directly, we cannot provide any evidence to the contrary. So we will, for the time being, we will think that it is a human disorder. The second one, is it a heritable disorder? So we know from family adoption and twin studies that schizophrenia runs in families. If anyone in the family has schizophrenia, there is a higher chance than the general population to have schizophrenia again in the family. And the heritability estimates go as high as 80%. And the prevalence of schizophrenia is almost 1% across the whole population, wherever you go, irrespective of the geographical conditions. So for the question, we can answer yes, it is a heritable disorder, but what it has to do with the evolution. So coming to the informal definition of the evolution, or informal language of evolution, evolution is nothing but a change in the inherited traits in the population. So alternatively, I have rephrased. Alternatively, for evolutionary forces to come into play, the trait should be heritable. So you can see the interchanging of change to force. If you remember our Newton's first law, to have a change, we should have some force to act on the object. So there are two major evolutionary forces. One is natural selection, the other is sexual selection. So natural selection, we know this one, it is dubbed as survival of the fittest, though fittest is the misnomer. Okay, it is survival of the advantage this person. So what happens here is the trait which increases the survival are likely to be passed to the next generation. That means it is selected over the time. And the survival advantage, usually when it was originally formulated by Darwin, he has thought about world as a prey and predator relationship. But survival is a function that depends not on individual per se, but also on environment. And fitness is not about strength alone. So take for the example that almonds, which we all know are sweet, but when you go to the wild almonds, they are actually bitter. But we never know that the almonds are bitter because we always been exposed to sweet almonds. So bitter almonds have been domesticated by humans to sweet almonds, and sweet almonds have survival advantage because we all like it. Though there is no survival advantage when you put the sweet almonds in the forest. The second one is sexual selections. This is the sexual characteristics have actually posed Darwin trouble when he wants to formulate natural selection, because when you think of a prey predator world, okay, having sexual characters, take for example peacock, having a conspicuous and heavy tail impedes its movements, and also it attracts predators, which is a disadvantage. But still, these features are persisting in the population. And one reason he has formulated is these features will help the female to choose a male partner, which in turn increases the reproductive success. So There are different explanations for this one. One is diminished fluctuating asymmetry. The other is good gene hypothesis, though we have never touched genes until now. We will try to allude it to at some point in the presentation. But coming to fluctuating asymmetry, think about it like this. So females are more attracted towards asymmetry. Are more attracted towards symmetry. And now, to understand whether the male has got symmetry or not, it is very difficult to observe it and then choose. So what nature has taken is it has exaggerated the features. So think it as a pixelated image. So you have taken a photo in 2 pixels and 100 pixels. Okay, when you want to see the quality of the image, you zoom in and see whether the pixelated object has get distorted or not. In the same way, the aspects which are under consideration has been enlarged to see whether they still maintain symmetry or not. So that is the reason you have a conspicuous parts, take about tail or the feathers or some other coloring patterns on the body of a male person. If you see the common goal of both natural selection or the sexual selection, I can think it as a quality check on the trait that is inherited. So when it passes the quality, you will enable it to go to the next generation. If it doesn't pass, you will remove that one. So when you try to increase or when you let the quality to pass on, you will consider it as a positive selection. When you let it remove from the population, you call it as a negative selection. So coming to the central paradox of schizophrenia, in a nutshell, if you have to ask what do these evolutionary forces do, they increase the frequency of a trait that has either survival or reproductive advantage. Now the question, does schizophrenia has any survival or reproductive advantage? So we know that schizophrenia is a disadvantage in terms of survival because they need to be cared for, they require support of the family members. And also studies have shown that the fertility in schizophrenia is low. That means especially in the male people. Okay. Now the issue with these two statements is in the population, schizophrenia is stable. It is there in 1% of the population wherever you go, whether you measure schizophrenia in India or in America. So the stable prevalence in the population despite high heritability and reduced fertility should go again as a principle of natural selection. That means it has to be removed from the population, but still it is prevailing in the population. This is a central paradox of schizophrenia, which is also you can consider as the enigmatic problem to the evolutionary psychiatrists. No, we will try to approach this problem based on an analogy. We will not talk about balance selection in terms of definition, but we will try to understand balance selection through another isomorphic problem. Take, for example, there is a sickle cell anemia and malaria relationship. We know that sickle cell anemia is a heritable disorder. It is an inherited genetic disorder with a mutation in hemoglobin gene. It causes reduced fertility. That means when the person is carrying both homozygous mutation, it is highly lethal and the person will die before reaching his reproductive age group. And it is also highly prevalent in African subcontinent. So again, if you see the three traits, high prevalence, reduced fertility, and heritability, it is similar to our paradox about schizophrenia. We consider these kind of problems as isomorphic problems. They have similar structure. Okay. So we will try to find the reason for this problem. So one of the well-established reason is Africa has high prevalence of malaria. Heterozygous carriers of this mutation has a survival advantage because malaria parasite will not be able to survive in the sickle cell or sickle RBC. So abstraction here is the negative selection pressure in one has to be counterbalanced by the survival advantage in another. What it means is, so person who has developed sickle cell anemia, so he is at a disadvantage, but person who has not developed, he has survival advantage. So you have, so at one particular point, you have a negative balance and the other place you have an advantage. So this will maintain the balance and ensure that the trait or the cause for this trait to survive in the population. So now the obligatory question which comes into our mind is what are the advantages of having schizophrenia to the population? Because we know that schizophrenia is a disadvantage to the person who is having schizophrenia, but it should cause some advantage to the population for it to be surviving in the population. So whatever we spoke until now, we spoke about a trait, but we can extend it to genes because we can consider them as latent variables. So think that trait is measured and genes are hidden. So you can always go back and forth between trait and genes. Now we will touch the main question. So is schizophrenia a consequence of a fundamental aspect of humans? Now, this is something which has been hypothesized as early as 1997. Okay, the reasons which are enumerated are so we know that schizophrenia is only a human disorder. We don't know any existence of schizophrenia in any animal population. We also see schizophrenia to be present in aboriginal populations which have got separated from the mainstream of population, that is from the African population long back, but still we see its presence. Take for example in the Australian Aboriginals, and then we also see that there is a constant prevalence across the geographical boundaries. So the statement 2 and 3 will tell you that it rules out the environmental influence on the disorder per se. The third one is it has a fairly constant age of onset across time and space. If you put all these points into framework, the hypothesis which it generates or the assumption which you will evaluate is causal change which has caused schizophrenia must have occurred as early or as old as the speciation event of humans. The second one is the genes. As I told, we can go back and forth between genes and traits when there is heritability involved. So the genes contributing for the evolution of humans from its closest ancestors should also be contributing for schizophrenia. The third point is the genes must be involved with the functions which differentiates humans from other primates. So almost all the three statements are similar, but they have functional differences in how we evaluate those points. It's an interesting hypothesis, actually, thinking that schizophrenia is a consequence or epiphenomena of being human. No, there are several studies which have been done because it's been there for 2 decades. There are several studies which have tried to evaluate these hypotheses. No, if you go through the studies, I will not touch all the studies. I will try to touch few studies to show you the breadth of the topic. So the general framework which you will observe in all these studies is the authors will consider a trait or a measure which they consider as important to humans, and they give a rationale or evidence from the previous studies why they consider it as important, and then they will try to choose a tool which can investigate the trait or the measure, and then they will try to show there is a significant enrichment in schizophrenia. For the first one, the first topic which I want to put forth is schizophrenia and creativity. And we all know that creativity is something which is positively regarded in humans, and it has been positively selected also. The recent genetic studies have shown that the genes which are responsible for creativity are being positively selected. So this relationship between schizophrenia and creativity has always been sought out and always been tried by numerous researchers to tease out the relationship between schizophrenia and creativity. The first one is Carlson. You can see the studies from the Scandinavian countries. The first which I can find is Carlson's article where he has shown that the relatives of psychotic individuals have significantly increased probability of being considered as a person of eminence. And then again, studies from the same Iceland population, they have seen that the relatives unusual, they will be employed in unusually creative jobs, and they have unusual hobbies, and also they tend to have higher levels of schizotypal personality traits. The one more study which has been done is the creative and schizophrenic individuals, both of them share a similar style of thinking that has been labeled as loose or over-inclusive thinking. Coming to the genetics part, the neuroglin gene, which is associated with creativity, is also been shown in several studies to be associated with schizophrenia. These are older studies. Coming to the recent genetic studies, so when you compare this, when you calculate the polygenic risk scores, the risk score for schizophrenia, the higher is the score, it is associated with artistic societal membership or creative profession in both Icelandic population and the replication cohort with a p-value which is very, very small. So I have skipped language and lateralization because there are so many studies on both language and lateralization, just because there is no point. We will be repeating the same lines again and again. So I will take the other one to show that we have shifted from the neuropsychological assessments to the brain connectivity. So this is a study which was done in 2019. It has checked for the schizophrenia disconnectivity between humans, schizophrenia disconnectivity when they compared between human population and the chimpanzee population. So what they have done is they have taken the brain networks of human population and chimpanzee population, and they have observed that both of these brain connectivities are highly overlapping. And then when they teased out, they have found that around 3% of connectivities are human specific, and around 7 connections, which is 1% of the connections, are chimpanzee specific, and around 90% of the connections are shared among humans and chimpanzees. So what they have hypothesized is schizophrenia should be enriched in human specific connections. So this is what they have found. Okay, they have found similar findings. They have showed that human specific connections showed a higher level of congruence with schizophrenia disconnectivity. When they tried to do with other disorders, other psychiatric disorders, there is no significance in the other disorders, except that there is significance only in the schizophrenia population. They also tried to compare this one with macaque rhesus monkeys. So they have got similar findings in, even in when they compared with humans, chimpanzees, and macaques. So we also have a similar genetic study showing that schizophrenia associated genes are enriched in the human accelerated gene regions, and they are also under strong positive selective pressure. The last one, which I found is a very interesting topic, is schizophrenia and hyperdomestication. And this is a very recent article, I mean, not recent, around 5 years back, but it's an interesting topic to read. The thing is, Darwin himself considered humans as a domesticated primates. So when you compare with the extinct homins, humans have exhibited more of domesticated traits. What do you mean by domestication is, or you can think as you are no more in a prey-predator world. You have a socializing behavior, you have a societal norms, so there is a relaxation of selective pressures which are there in the animal kingdom. This relaxation will provide you a window of opportunity for socialization, which in turn contributes for emergence of complex language. So, so domestication and language readiness are believed to be co-evolving, and then we also think that the genes which are responsible for domestication, language readiness, are important in the development, and they are also related to the neural crust. So the authors in this paper, they have first tried to tease out whether in schizophrenia there is a heightened features of domestication. So they have listed a lot of features which are seen in schizophrenia, and then they try to attribute that as a hyper-domesticated traits in schizophrenia. Then they have used genetics. So they have taken a data set of domesticated animals and then tried to see what are the genes which are there in domesticated animals, differential expression in domesticated animals. They also tried to see from the human database what are the genes which are known to cause neural crush development, and they have taken the schizophrenia genes and then they try to tease out what are the common genes which are there, or shared genes. They have found 42 shared genes, and they have seen that these genes are important in both language and development, and they also seen that these genes are enriched in frontal cortex, striatum, and hippocampus, which is which are the regions which you see both in language and schizophrenia. So the limitations of these studies, the thing with all these studies is there are certain limitations or the biases which we will go back to our first slide itself. The first thing we have told is it is a human disorder, but we have never asked this question: when in the human evolution this particular disorder has its origin. So most of the studies which we have seen, they consider implicitly, okay, that it is a modern human disorder, because they don't think that the archaic humans has schizophrenia. Now this becomes a problem because this is a confounding variable. So we can think that we can ask this question: is it really a modern human disorder? Because does the human ancestors like Neanderthals or Denisovians have schizophrenia? The second is the prevalence of schizophrenia relatively stable? Because all we know from research is from 1990 or 1970 to 2020, okay, it is relatively stable. Okay, but in the when you consider the evolutionary time scale, it is very, very small. You cannot call that as a stable prevalence. The third point is we considered in all these studies schizophrenia as a homogeneous entity. Like my friend J. Krishna has told, schizophrenia is a heterotypic disorder, and then there is a lot of variability in the psychopathology, and none of these constructs will explain you the psychopathological difference. The third and the last and important point is gender difference in the age of onset. We cannot explain that through the construct we have discussed until now. It requires actually one more construct to be brought in: sexual selection. We will discuss about it in the next slide. This is one recent study in 2019 which has provided evidence for recent negative selection for schizophrenia alleles. So I will not go to the intricacies of the study, but if you recollect that I have told that if schizophrenia is advantageous to the population, those genes should be positively selected. But this is evidence to the contrary. So you are seeing that there is a negative selection, and the authors have hypothesized that with the brain evolution, the schizophrenia risk genes also have increased in the population, and then there is a turning point in the evolution where they started to be removed from the population. Now, this turning point they have kept almost a million years ago, which predates human population. They have thought that even Neanderthals and Denisovians also might have a risk for schizophrenia, and then they have hypothesized this hypothesis can only be examined by understanding whether there is a falling incidence of schizophrenia from Neanderthals to humans. I think which is impossible to test. But the alternate assumption we can test it if we have the Neanderthal or Denisovian genome. So is there a falling polygenic risk scores from Neanderthal to human when you try to calculate the risk scores for schizophrenia? The third one, which we can obviously test, is if this hypothesis is true, we should see decreased incidence of schizophrenia on an evolutionary time scale, which means if you take 100 years, you have to see that incidence of schizophrenia is falling in the population. The other one is schizophrenia and fluctuating asymmetry. We have slightly alluded this one when we are talking about the feathers or the tails of peacock. So we have already told that the female counterpart will always like to see symmetry in the male partner, and but in nature there is a different kinds of asymmetries which are present. Two asymmetries which are very easy for us to understand is one is fluctuating asymmetry and the second one is directional asymmetry. If you think about directional asymmetry, that is about handedness, because in the nature right-handedness is more prevalent than the left-handed. Coming to the fluctuating asymmetry, it is about this one. In the population, when you measure a trait, the mean value is 0. Take for example the position of the nose. For most of us, it will be in center, okay, except for a less number of people where it might be deviant. So when you try to average it out, it will be center. So this is what we call it as fluctuating asymmetry. When you take the trait in the population, it means out to 0, but there will be slight variations. Okay. Now, if you see these tails, which are extremes, these extremes are what might be the one which are relevant for schizophrenia. If you see in schizophrenia, fluctuating asymmetry is greater in twin pair concordance than for the discordant pairs, and it also tells you that there is some issue with either genetics or the environmental effects during the developmental period. And it also explains why patients with schizophrenia has greater number of minor physical anomalies. This also tells you why there is a different age of onset in males and females. But the problem with, though it is alluding to the evolutionary aspects of schizophrenia, this particular concept is not specific to humans. It is there in the animal population. So again, it is a counter argument to our initial hypothesis that schizophrenia is a price we pay for human evolution. So let's digress whatever we have discussed until now. So we started with this question that schizophrenia is an enigmatic disorder from evolutionary perspective. We thought balance selection hypothesis can explain this enigma by considering schizophrenia as epiphenomenon of human evolution. But there is three assumptions which we made without stating that in the balanced selection hypothesis. One is it as a homogeneous disorder. It only explains the persistence of schizophrenia as a stable prevalence. And one big problem with that one is it doesn't explain the specific features of schizophrenia. And two more explicitly stated limitations. It's a human disorder. We don't know whether it is a modern human disorder or it is also prevalent in archaic humans. And then the stable prevalence assumption is only for a small time scale, which is relatively small in terms of evolutionary time scale. And we also have seen sexual selection can explain some of the differences which are noted in schizophrenia. So I also want to just allude to this point. So in statistics or in science, we always make assumptions and hypotheses. And most of times most of the models are wrong, but they are useful. And this construct which we have told that schizophrenia is a price we pay for human evolution is a reductionistic view which we want to evaluate at this particular point of time. But as we grow along, we might need to find a better alternative or an explanation. These are my key references. I also want to put this word. I have hopped or skipped a lot of things to keep it short and still make some sense. But if there is any place where you have not understood, I will take questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Ravi. I think